let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. So verify the quorum. We have a quorum. And how many board members do we have?
We have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Okay, so that means how many votes to pass any type of action item? We have 14, it looks like 8.
No, a quorum is
7.
to pass anything. 14 would be 8.
Okay, and what I'm actually referring to one is that if you look at the bottom of page 5, we've actually added to our agendas a matrix that shows the number of board members present. And also on the bottom of that, how many yes votes it would take to pass any type of board action, just so there's no confusion. It's actually not a simple majority sort of thing. It's actually,
I mean, is here.
yeah, it's.
Or you couldn't say, you couldn't say we have 14, so it's 7, so 7 plus 1.
You could say that, or you could write it down.
Thank you. All right. So can we confirm that we posted the agenda?
Yes. You have the agendas are posted.
Okay, next item.
I did want to say, we had discussed that we're finding that sometimes, this is on the agenda posting, we find that sometimes you're all going to a conference or something, and we don't know it. And if you know you're going to a conference and other cities might be involved, let me know so that we have time to change a meeting. Like the last steering committee was like in the middle of, or with the contract cities. Yeah, and we could have talked about changing it, but I didn't find out till too late. So just a cautionary warning, please let me know if you know. Thank you. Okay, Brown Act. All right, the Brown Act declaration is pursuant to 361. We'll make the findings that we can still meet in this fashion.
We need a motion for that. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second, Boyles.
All right, thank you. Moved and seconded, reverse roll call. Natalie, are you going to be doing that, or is David? Oh, Jackie.
Okay. All those, how does he do it? All those.
Any opposed?
Any opposed, sorry, without Dave, we're all lost without David. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Then the motion passes.
Thank you, Jackie. Any changes to the agenda?
No, no changes to the agenda.
Public comments?
We do have a public comment from Holly Osborne, who is the screen.
Hi, Holly.
Hi, this is Holly Osborne, and I live in North Redondo Beach, and I'm going to be talking just a little bit about the Green Line. They actually released their report last night at about 5:00 p.m. and I happened to get it then, and so I've been looking at it, and I found mistakes. Some of them are small, but some of them are mistakes in figures that could get the wrong impression, and I wanted to know what's the best way to correct those and inform other people, and also, do you guys have the power to get a copy of the DEIR that somebody can actually edit, or at least out, if there's a PDF, some programs let you highlight something just so you can flag it. Because it's 1,000 pages long, and you kind of want to be able to mark it as you go through. So that's the question. I found errors. That was my career for 40 years, was finding errors in reports. So I'm very good at it. And I would just like to a more simple way to do it than a 1,000-page report with no place to put edits.
I'm going to ask Steve Lance if you could answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that. You should contact Mark Dierking, DIERKING at LA Metro, and get a copy of whatever they have, whether it's a PDF or some other version. But he'll be able to help you with that.
Well, I've got the PDF. I've had it since last night. I just thought you guys would have more clout to get a working.
Well, Mark's very responsive to the public. He's their community relations person assigned to this project. So if he can get you anything other than the PDF, he'll be happy to do so.
14, 15.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Sure. Good question, Holly. Okay. I think there's no other comments. Next item.
Next time is the consent calendar, and I just want to make 2 comments on the consent calendar. I put in highlighting that anything on the consent calendar that's an action item is actually gone to the steering committee. So I just wanted you all to know that it's been approved by the steering committee. And yet, I also put a note under items E and F, which are simple ministerial contract extensions and room rental. And they came after the steering committee. And so we really, they're specifically noted, they have not gone to the steering committee if you have any special questions to ask. But I just wanted, I will be doing that in the future. There's no, I won't have it highlighted, but if you see something on the consent calendar, it's gone through the steering committee. And if it hasn't gone through the steering committee, we will note it. And it will only be something really simple that hasn't gone to the steering committee. That's it.
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second, Tanaka.
And moved and seconded.
Okay, are there any objections to the consent calendar? Are there any abstentions to the consent calendar?
I just need to abstain from A because I was not at that meeting.
Okay, we have one abstention from,
Just now.
I'll abstain as well.
I was,
Thank you.
and two abstentions, one,
And McCosker will abstain.
okay, that's three abstentions.
You can add Massey to that list too, please.
Okay, four abstentions.
Jackie, add me, Debbie Stigura, because this is my first full board meeting.
I was here.
Not going to get them passed if it's.
What
I was
I'm
here.
trying to say is that anyone that wasn't at the meeting
Right.
just abstain. So just go ahead and figure out who was at the meeting today and do
Or you
that.
could take them separate. Yeah, we can take, what, should we just take the minutes separately?
Okay, do.
Yeah,
yes, let's
okay,
do.
so let's do the minutes first. For those people that, is there an objection to the minutes? And is there anybody that would like to abstain? Considering that we will look at the minutes and note all those people that weren't there are not voting.
Who's taking notes, Natalie?
Yes.
If you're abstaining, go ahead and raise your hand on the screen and then everyone else can just kind of raise their hand and come know our names. Just
Okay. So then, are we ready? Ready? We can also look at the minutes last time. Okay.
Do you have enough people to approve the minutes?
I don't know if we have enough people to move minutes.
Okay, I'll keep my hand down.
That's the problem. Minutes will just have to be,
Anybody else?
we
with
can
their
bring them
hand up?
again. I don't know how they do this normally.
So, it doesn't necessarily, our Cal City's attorneys believe that you don't actually have to have been present during the previous meeting in order to attest that you believe that the minutes are true, based on the scribe.
Right, it seems that there has to be some out for this because councils change and boards change. And so people were not always there for that new meeting. Does anybody want to change?
I will do so with my infinite trust. David Lesserman.
how many votes do we have?
Okay, yeah, how many? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes. Let's start there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Got people on
6.
screen too.
Jeff, by the way, that's how I interpret. That's why I didn't.
It looks like we have enough.
You're okay with that? Okay,
All right,
so the minutes have been
got
approved.
through the minutes.
Let's do the consent the rest of the. consent.
Great.
And thank you, Jeff, the lead.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay, B through H on the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Again.
is there any objection to the consent calendar as amended?
Vicky, you have your hand up still. Do you have a question or?
Are there any abstentions on the consent calendar? Okay, and that's been approved.
Very good.
Okay, then, do you want to go on to the?
Yeah, so the next item, we actually are gonna welcome all the newly elected South Bay City Council members. And I thought what we'd do tonight, or Jackie actually suggested this, is that since there's several people that have been on the board for a few years and some are brand new, but the agenda is fairly light tonight, without giving full political speeches. Go around the room and politicians and introduce themselves, of course. Tell us if you recently won your election or if how long you've been on the council, what council you're on, what your current position is, and maybe what your interest is being a part of the South Bay City Council of Government. I'll go ahead and start. So John Cruikshank, I was elected in 2017 and I've been on the board for a few years now of the COG. I'm currently Mayor Pro Tem in our city, and to us, all the issues that the COG works on are important, but right now the housing issues are really important. And of course, even though we don't have freeways going through Rancho Palos Verdes, the traffic in your cities affect our residents. So it's really important that transportation is something that's done properly. George.
George Chen, Mayor, City of Torrance. 6.5 months as a mayor, elected back in June of 2022. I'm an alternate now. I see one of my colleagues, Assam Sheikh. It was on there.
I am still here.
Okay.
So,
I'm not a man of many words, so next.
I'll take your time, George. No.
so I'll start. My name is Assam Sheikh, and I was elected 6.5 months ago on June the 12th. I really don't know what to expect from this, but I have a lot of questions that I may ask down the line. But thank you, and take it away.
Welcome, Assam. Questions are welcome.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, I'm Alex Monteiro. I'm from the city of Hawthorne. I've been in the council now. I enter my 5th year, right? Got reelected in November. I was an alternate delegate for 4 years to this board. So now Olivia is gone. So now I'm the delegate. So, but I love the work that South Bay COG does, the homeless task force, the fiber network, the transportation to get all those measure H, measure R money. So I'm happy.
Welcome back, Alex.
My name is Drew Boyles. I am the mayor of the most important 5 square miles economically in Southern California, AKA El Segundo. And I'm also the past chair.
My neighbor.
And that's right. SpaceX started here and it moved to Hawthorne. What can I say? But I love the COG. It's great to be here, and John's doing a great job. Meetings aren't quite as succinct and on time as they were last year, but he's doing a pretty good job. That's awesome. I'm doing a great job. I'm kidding. I'm done. I'm kidding.
Overtime next.
Yeah. A mess. My name is Cedric Hicks. I'm the councilman for the city of Carson. I've been on the council since 2016, been involved with the COG since 2016. Have been involved prior to that, was an employee of the city for almost 30 years and retired in 2016 and got roped into running for city council. So I've been on city council for the last 8 years. Again, I just love the COG. I love what they represent and what they do. And always been here, wanted to at least lend my hand to assist the community of the South Bay.
Yeah, it's great. Past police officer.
Oh, and I'm the first prize, so I forgot about that.
Hi, I'm Rodney Tanaka, council member with the city of Gardena. I'm in my 2nd term. The COG is just the greatest place. There's so much knowledge here. You have to be a sponge just to suck it up because you learn something from everybody in every city. So I'm actually blessed that I can be with everybody here to learn things. And I don't know how it happened, but I became the 2nd vice chair.
Yeah.
I'll go briefly. My name is Mark Henderson. I'm also on the council, city of Gardena, ending my 2nd term. Hopefully I'll get reelected in 24. I am not the primary, nor am I the alternate to the COG, but I love the COG. Jackie's my girlfriend, so. But I am our regional council representative to SCAG. So, and everything, but Jackie invited me to dinner, so I'm here on my way out the door. Good seeing you all again on Thursday. Absolutely.
I'm Britt Huff, currently serving as mayor of the wonderful city of Rolling Hills Estates, and was reelected in November for a 3rd term. I've been involved with the COG since 2013. And I am I'm also a former chair of the COG a few years back. And I'm like George, the alternate this year, and our delegate is Debbie Stigura, who is with us virtually, and I'll let her say a few words about the city.
Debbie?
Well, that was an introduction. Debbie Stigura, elected 2020. I'm here because Mayor Huff appointed me to be the delegate. And I am interested in COG's work, obviously. It attacks the quality of life issues that affect our residents at a very local level, but we leverage the power of the entire South Bay to improve that. So looking forward to this year.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'm Councilmember David Lesser, and I guess I'm a newbie in that I was just sworn in just last month in December, but I see a lot of new faces because for most of my last 8 years when I was on council from 2011 to 2019, I was involved with the COG and was on its steering committee. And what I can say about the COG is beyond the infrastructure projects and beyond some of the environmental initiatives, this is really a representation, as the last speaker just said, of our community. We're far stronger when we act together. We can get more grants in a practical matter, but we also can achieve issues as they arise, whether it was power reliability issues, where Jackie was an important conduit, which got us ex-parte meetings with the PUC chair and resulted in massive investments in upgrading our infrastructure to deal with reliability issues, or even Vista Del Mar. It was at a COG board meeting where I met with Mayor of El Segundo's predecessor, Suzanne Fuentes. We ultimately brought Drew in, and we worked together as a region to actually undo what was a really injurious road diet that was on Vista Del Mar that impacts on our cities and multiple cities. We couldn't have done that unless we acted together as a region. It was outside of our jurisdiction. So I'm looking forward to coming back today. Interests are housing as well, along with everybody, as well as the typical standbys of infrastructure and environmental advocacy.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
Great to see you all again. I'm Justin Massey, currently Mayor Pro Tem of the Hermosa Beach City Council. I'm replacing Stacy Armato, my former colleague who decided not to run for re-election. I've been bouncing around for a while. I was elected to the Hermosa Beach City Council in 2015, served as our delegate to the COG for a while, and then let Stacy have the chance to do it for a while, and now I'm back. For me, you know, there's very few opportunities I get to sit around and get face-to-face time with the diversity of communities we have in the COG. And I think that's frankly our strength. We joke in the beach cities that we live in a bubble, and it's absolutely true, right? I mean, we're demographically very similar. Our kids go to school locally. Most of us work locally, so we often don't get out. The opportunity to be here, to talk to folks in the South Bay, but to have different cities, different communities, totally enriches the experience for me, teaches me a ton about what the challenges are regionally, and is fun while we do it. So it's great to see you all.
It's good. Stacy said you volunteered to take on the legislative committee too.
Not a chance. I would never do it as well as she did.
Councilman McCosker, you want to lead us off?
Sure thing. Hey, all, Tim McCosker. Pardon my voice. I'm actually quarantined at home. I have my first case of COVID. I made it all the way through a two-year campaign, and I'm just now getting COVID for the first time. Very mild case. I'm doing very, very well, but I'm happy to be here with you. So I'm the recently elected councilman for the 15th district in Los Angeles, about a month and a half into it. My history, though, is that I had worked with the city of LA in a couple of different capacities before. I was Jim Hahn's chief of staff in the mayor's office, and I was his chief deputy city attorney. Before that, I had the opportunity to be a city attorney for the law firm of Burke, Williams and Sorensen, and I had the honor of being city attorney of Lomita and city attorney of Manhattan Beach on two different stints, but those were years ago. So my interests is, and I actually worked, I did some general counsel work for COGS. Not this COG, but I worked on some other COGs through that firm. So I have real interest in making sure that we all work together on all of our areas of interest and need, and homelessness being probably the most critical for all of us. But traffic circulation, as I have a district that runs 13 miles and abuts to many other jurisdictions, we need to work together, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you. Victoria.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Losey. I just was reelected to my second term on the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates. I'm the immediate past mayor of PBE, so I was mayor last year. I started my public service as the elected city treasurer in 2017, so finance is my wheelhouse. And my interest in South Bay COG is really for our city to better collaborate with the other cities in the South Bay on mutual issues on many of the things that you all have already mentioned, and I'm happy to join the group. So nice to see you all.
Thank you, Victoria. Bernadette.
Hi, I'm Bernadette Suarez. I have been on the city council since 2016, just won my reelection in November. And pretty much what everybody else in the group said, I love that you get to meet your immediate neighbors and the collaboration, as well as the expertise that's provided. It's such a hands-on organization, and I love the results that we get.
Bernadette, you didn't say what city you're from.
Oh, I thought I did. City of Lawndale. I thought everyone knew.
We do now. Thanks, Bernadette. Zane? I don't know.
Sorry. Howdy, y'all. I'm on baby duty. Zane Obaji. I'm North Redondo Beach City Council member. I live and represent North Redondo.
Got the key.
In particular. And I'm excited to be part of the COG. Ooh, am I breaking up?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Anyhow, you guys read about me in the paper plenty, so I don't think you need to hear more, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Zane.
And Alfonso.
Oh, Alfonso's with us. Alfonso.
Well, Alfonso.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear. I just got here parked outside. But Alfonso Ruiz Delgado, I'm the proxy vote for Supervisor Holly Mitchell. And I'm actually 2022 was when I started. And it's been great to see all the work that all the cities are working together in this. So it's great to see it. Other than that, that's it. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Is Diane with us?
No.
Okay, is there anyone I missed? I know I'm not in the room. Anyone I missed? Okay, I think we're good. All right, thank you, everyone. Did you want to just a quick tell your staff who your staff are? Just a quick.
Okay, well, you all know me, and I've been here a long time. But why don't the staff go around and introduce themselves? And we'll start with Kim.
Sure, I'm Kim Fuentes. I'm Jackie's deputy executive director. I run the environmental programs, and I've been here almost as long as Jackie. I think only about 3 months less than Jackie.
Hey, Natalie, do you want to go next?
Yep, my name's Natalie Champion, and I am the administrative assistant for Jackie. Been working with Jackie for almost 9.5 years now, and work with board of directors on these meeting steering, legislative briefings, and annual Form 700. So
Yeah.
you see my emails.
And she's going to be talking about Form 700 soon. So, that's Bronson.
I'm Bronson Chu, Senior Project Manager for Homeless Services.
Lauren Jacobs, project coordinator for senior services and services. Been coming up on 3 years with the club.
Steve.
I have about 50 years of experience in transportation. First 10 years at the Century City Chamber of Commerce. Then I went to work for Metro, and I worked for Metrolink, and then I came to work for the COG, and I also worked for Jim Butts in his role as a board member at Metro.
Hey, Colleen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Farrell. I'm the Senior Project Manager of Communications. And so I work on social media, the newsletter, e-blasts, anything related to communications. I've been here for about 2.5 years now.
Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm the admin officer here. I do basically budget, accounting, payroll, and I've only been here since May of this year. Prior to being here, I was a management analyst for the city of Costa Mesa.
And I don't know if South Bay Cities, that's David, right?
Yes, that's me. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
We'll go.
Okay. David Legier. I've been here, I think, going on 7 years. I manage the Measure R&M programs and the legislative portfolio and a little bit of everything else around the office.
And Dakota. I have Jonathan too. Oh, Dakota?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Dakota Townsend. I am a project coordinator with the COG, and I do outreach. So I am out in the city promoting all of our environmental programs. and I'll be going on my first year with the COG in April.
And somehow, Jonathan, you fell off my screen for a second. So Jonathan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Pacheco Bell. I work on land use and housing for the COG. I've been in planning for about 16 years. I started at LA County Regional Planning. And after doing about 13 years there, I worked in nonprofit planning. Then I went to the private sector. And that's how I joined the COG as a contract planner. And then I came over as a full-time employee. So considering the entire time that I've been with the COG, it's been about a year and a half. And it's absolutely great to be back in the public sector. Thank you.
I think that's our staff. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. Okay.
Right here.
Oh, they're not staff, but yeah, I don't know if you want to
You want to
introduce. The people that are here that are set up, like, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. My name is Elaine Jang. I'm the city manager for the city of Rolling Hills. I was sent tonight by V to spy on all you.
Jeff Kiernan with the League of California Cities.
And do you want to go to the screen for the people that are just, let's see.
I think it's not everybody.
Well, we didn't introduce Sergio. Who was,
Sergio, you could.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
did we do Sergio?
No. Hi, Sergio.
Hi, everyone. Sergio Carrillo. I work for Councilmember Tim McCosker.
Right. And then we also have Linda Hunter. Who's there? And Stephen Sawyer.
Oh, Linda's there.
Oh, is she there? Okay.
Go ahead, Linda.
Hunter? Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm with the private sector. I'm Linda Hunter. I'm with Rincon Consultants. We provide environmental consulting services for transportation infrastructure projects.
Welcome.
And Stephen Sawyer.
Good evening, everybody. This is Stephen Sawyer. I'm Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications, also known as Spectrum. And I enjoy watching from afar, but one of these days I'll get down there in person to join you all in the new facility.
The other two people are speakers that we're hearing from.
Okay.
But before we do that, oh, now you're walking around.
There's a there you can do that.
So I was going to say, no, during the newly elected, I was going to say that we were I was delighted to read in the newspaper that Drew and Raymond Jackson went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Yeah.
And I thought it might be informative for everybody to have you give a very brief report on what you did there.
Can they see?
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I had the opportunity to go when I first got elected mayor about 4 years ago, and I missed that opportunity. Then COVID hit. And so I was at first like, am I going to get much out of this conference? And what are we going to spend taxpayer dollars? We probably got that back 20x. I mean, I was talking to our chief of police today about 4 different ideas that I heard about at that conference. One being live 911. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's a way to basically get dispatch calls routed through the police cars. Chief's like, we're already working on that. Great. But, it's good to get informed on that. Whole bunch of other cool policing technology. A lot of time spent about how to navigate all of the infrastructure dollars, not just the Inflation Reduction Act, but the one that preceded that, and how complicated it is and what those funds can be used for. But I'd say the biggest takeaway wasn't the breakouts. I did another one on entrepreneurship, something that's near and dear to my heart, and how you can foster that in your community. Those are all great, and the general assemblies were great, hearing from cabinet members, and we saw President Biden speak, and he was great, actually. And what was best was hallway. I run into Justin or Ray's talking to Glenn Davis, who I went to China with, and Mayor of Santa Monica, and like ideas just start flowing. And that was the best part of it, the networking, similar to what we have COG, but getting introduced to people that are mayors of small and big cities. One of my favorite experiences was sitting across from the mayor of Detroit, where I have a business, and hearing his story was incredible. Everything they've been through, because he was there through the whole vacant blocks to now just vacant lots, which I've also witnessed, which is pretty crazy, and how they're on the uptick. So just a lot of takeaway from other mayors in the same position. I'd highly recommend it, and definitely be going back. So yeah, thanks. Sorry for walking around.
Oh, it's perfect timing.
Okay.
Next item.
The next item is Lindsay Lastrup. As you remember from the public health, last year, Lindsay was kind enough to come to practically every one of our board meetings. This year, we've agreed that she'll come quarterly and present us with reports on what's going on in the public health department. Very, very short reports, but give us an update. So, Lindsay?
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everybody. I'm hoping to make it to the meeting, my next quarter presentation. So I'll get started with my presentation. And of course, if anyone has any questions, you are always welcome to bring it up. Can you see the screen presentation mode?
Not yet.
No.
Okay. Then let me. Okay, share.
I guess I can say we've been joined by Sarah Patterson, who is from SCAD.
Now we can see it.
Do you see it in presentation mode?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll be doing some quick updates, and again, feel free to ask questions. I'll be covering COVID-19 update, monkeypox, as well as Ebola. Talking a little bit about our new education sector liaison team, some hiring opportunity that we have with AmeriCorps, and just some resources that we have through our Center for Community Wellness. So really quick, I wanted to just really highlight the work that's the efforts, I guess, to really bring down the numbers of COVID. As you all have been hearing Dr. Ferrer speak to, our numbers have really started decreasing. This slide here really shows different levels. So the green line is our case count, the orange line is our hospitalization count, and then the blue line is the sad part of the death count. Things are trending down, which is the greatest part for us. We are excited to see that. We are still concerned with, especially right now, as the numbers have gone down, which was a great thing because we were thinking after the holidays, we were going to see an uptake how we did last year, but things have really gone steadily down. The only concern for us is that we do know that people are really testing mostly at home. And so we're not really seeing the true number of what's out there. But regardless, we definitely still see hospitalizations. We're at about 162 admissions per day, which is still high for us. That was a surge number for us during the summer surge. I'm sorry, that was a high peak number for us during our summer surge last year. But regardless, we are seeing the trends going down, which is positive for us. Sadly, we still continue to see deaths caused by COVID. And that's the number that we really want to just completely see at a zero. But things are looking positive. Okay. As just a reminder and just trying to think through as we start this next year, we wanted to just talk to people and remind folks to continue to protect those who are most vulnerable to illness. We, want to make sure that we reduce respiratory virus transmission, and take those steps to impact any of those new, minimize the impact of the new COVID strains. So to do that, we want to recommend people to mask indoors in public spaces for at least 10 days after they come back to either work because they've been traveling or to school. Those 10 days is just to regularly make sure that you don't have something, you didn't catch something while you were traveling. We're also still recommending people to test before gathering, and definitely staying home when sick. And that means avoiding parties, etc., if you aren't feeling well. And finally, obviously staying up to date with your boosters and vaccines around not just for COVID, but for also flu, etc. Really quick about monkeypox. Great news is, again, this one, just like COVID, we're seeing a decline in numbers. Overall, we saw a cumulative total of cases of 2,274, which do not include the ones for Long Beach and Pasadena, since they have their own health department. In SPA 8, we managed about 7% of those cases, which was 158. Right now, as of today, I would say actually as of last Thursday when I got the count, we had one case of monkeypox in SPA 8. Numbers continue to go down. We are actively seeing in all of LA County 29 cases with 2 contacts. So things are looking good. We're doing our job managing some of these diseases. And to just finish up on our communicable disease control, I want to share a little bit about Ebola. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but we also do get involved with outbreaks that are coming from international factors. I mean, that's how COVID really started when the pandemic first started. We also monitor such things as Ebola. There was an outbreak in Uganda at the end of last year, around September, October. And so we began a response effort to really interview travelers coming in through LA County, LAX, to just really determine if there was any risk of transmitting the disease into LA County. We had about 334 travelers that were identified. 241 were assigned to our division. So as I've shared before, we manage the communicable diseases or outbreaks in LA County, and we do that by spas. And so each spa was assigned certain travelers. We in Spa 8 received 23 of those out of those 241 travelers to interview. Out of those 23 that we received, we were able to complete 19 interviews. But essentially, the Ebola outbreak was managed in Uganda. We haven't seen a high risk. And so the the state of California's Department of Public Health, the CDC, as well as our department, basically connected and determined that we could end our Ebola response efforts. So great news. Again, we were able to just kind of make sure things didn't get out of hand for our county. So to share a little bit more about our ongoing efforts, I've shared in previous meetings that I oversee our community engagement efforts for the department in Spa 7 and Spa 8, Spa 8 being the South Bay area and Spa 7 being the eastern part of LA County, which is basically the 710 freeway to the east, at the edge of Orange County. So basically what we do, what we've been seeing during the COVID pandemic, we established a lot of relationships with the education sector, which had been a huge gap for us. But because of all the efforts that we had around COVID, we actually have established some really good partnerships with LAUSD, LACO, and then different districts that aren't connected to either of those to really kind of work towards improved health for the school community. And so we actually were given some staff to focus solely on the education sector. And I wanted to share what their efforts are and really kind of express our support. If you want to connect your school districts to us, this is definitely a way to do that. So our education sector liaisons, or ESLs, as I will call them, really are continuing that relationship that we are trying to build with schools. And that's from our primary, so our kinder through 12th grade schools, as well as higher education. We do provide our partners in the schools with support on during emergencies such as COVID pandemic, but also non-emergencies around, if they need information around flu or prevention for disease, et cetera. We will come and bring information, resources, and strategies to help the school community. One effort that I'll talk to you in the next slide about is our fentanyl response. And so I will definitely share about that. What we do also, I wanted to share, is that we are also supporting the schools with community engagement efforts by bringing in different educational opportunities, really bringing in our staff to their special events so that we can continue to educate people around public health initiatives. And not to mention communication tools. We do have a communications office. And so we really want to bring the best practices that we to share with them. We also help to identify needs and develop new programming. One example is our DPH school-based well-being centers. With our division of HIV and STD, we've been able to establish some sexual health clinics at different middle schools where we have high-risk schools with, just different issues and potential low insurance rates. And so we want to bring in those capacities to those schools. And finally, we are definitely trying to engage with our youth and bringing them to our youth efforts in our department. And so our ESL staff really really connect with the schools to promote these efforts, such as our Positive Youth Development Program. I've shared that with this group before. We basically take interns from high school to learn about public health. We want to build public health leaders, and that's what our programs hopefully are doing. As I mentioned in this next slide, what we do in schools is really try to bring as much support as we can. Right now, the fentanyl epidemic is hitting all of our schools at all levels. And so what we're offering are presentations for the schools, the parents, the school community, staff, community-based organizations, presentations on fentanyl. What is it? What you should look for, etc. We have substance abuse counselors who can actually also train people who are interested on the naloxone to be able to administer naloxone to somebody experiencing an overdose. We have also hosted town halls with schools and city leaders to talk around the fentanyl epidemic. The next thing we've supported is the vaccine, the school mandated vaccine support. That what we've done is to bring our mobile vaccine teams to help provide vaccines to schools that have low rates of vaccinations. We're also partnering or bringing in our oral health program to schools that have high rates of dental disease or low rates of dental insurance to try to bring in resources with screening opportunities as well as referrals. And finally, which we'll talk a little bit more about, our AmeriCorps member recruitment. We are again trying to bring public health experiences to different folks, students being one of them. And so we are hiring right now for AmeriCorps to gain some public health experience and work directly with us. So let me go into that slide. So essentially, we, public health, are hiring AmeriCorps members to be a part of our community engagement teams. In my unit, we have community health workers that go out and do community engagement with businesses, residents at different different events, not just health related events, to really talk about public health initiatives. And so we are inviting folks who are interested, who are students, who need like a part-time job. They will gain experience, they'll get paid a stipend. And for Spot 8 specifically, we are in the process of hiring 10 AmeriCorps members. So if any of you know of people that might be interested, in your packets, you have this flyer. The link is on there and people are welcome to apply. And we are, like I said, actively hiring. We're doing interviews. And finally, I will talk specifically about our Center for Community Wellness. This is located at our Curtis Tucker Health Center in Inglewood. We have a new established produce distribution event. We are giving away free produce to anyone who wants it. The fourth Tuesday of every month. We just had our first event this past Tuesday, and the next one will be in February on the 28th. Essentially, we are giving people produce, vegetables, and fruit, whatever we get, and we distribute it out. While we host this distribution event, we're also linking people to potentially CalFresh so that they can help get applied for CalFresh if they need it. We're also having different service providers attend this event so that we can connect people to additional services. In addition to that produce event, we have a food pantry distribution event. So these are your staple goods. So on the second Thursday of the month, we provide these staple goods, which are canned goods, rice, beans, etc., things that are a little more stable on the pantry. To come and get a bag of groceries. And so we now have 2 opportunities each month at our center to come for families, residents, anybody who is interested to come and get food. You have these flyers in your packets, and so you please share them with your constituents. And finally, I want to just share our Center for Community Wellness website. This is, again, it's also on your packets. I do invite you all to visit our website. We have regular programming every month. We have anywhere from line dancing to youth-oriented programming. We had a youth-led dance group just to exercise. But I do welcome you all to please visit our website and learn about our programming. And if you know of any agencies who might have an interest in hosting programming at our Center for Community Wellness, have them reach out to me because we are always open. Essentially, what we want to do is create a space for people to come and host their programming that is for free for the community. So we're always looking for new partners, and I will stop there. Those are all my slides. Any questions? All right, sounds great. Let me try to stop sharing. There. I don't hear anybody. Sorry, you guys, I think you all muted in the room. There you go.
Yeah, we had to mute. Rodney was doing something with his audio equipment back.
Sorry.
No, it looks like there's no question.
Lost control.
Thank you for that great presentation. We really appreciate it.
Maybe a quick one, if you don't mind.
Of course.
How are you guys dealing with the fact that so many people are not reporting their COVID positivity? Like in my family, our nanny got it. She gave it to me, gave it to my ex-wife. And then she finally tested negative, but nobody went to the doctor. Nobody necessarily disseminated it. And you just heard Mr. McCosker is also COVID positive. So it's like, you know, I doubt everybody's isolating and nobody's telling anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that's really part of this education effort of, you know, if you are not feeling well, you should still be masking, because people that's true for everybody. Most people aren't reporting. So we invite you to report, because that does help us to capture, but that's not going to stop you from leaving your home. So really this effort that we really try to do is to inform people, you know, COVID is still in the community. It is still being transmitted. The numbers haven't gone down. There isn't much that we can really mandate and tell people you have to report, because at the end of the day, we can't go into each house to say you must do this. So our effort to really just try to get the word out that the numbers are still high. If you are a vulnerable person who is, you know, is immunocompromised, you should really continue to mask, especially in public spaces, because you don't know, somebody might even be asymptomatic, not realizing that they are COVID positive in you know, public space. So it is a matter of still masking, especially if you're vulnerable or you know, you've been exposed and are still within, have already passed your 10 days, but potentially can still, are still showing some positivity. So masking continues to be our best strategy to mitigate that. But I appreciate that question, because I know that's happening.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Next item.
Okay, the next item is a quarterly update. We're going to do this now also from Area G. Area G is a disaster management area that has been around for a long time, but we have a new Area G coordinator. It actually represents 14 of our cities. Area E is where Carson is, but all of the emergency, or Brandy can tell us this, disaster coordinators work together. Brandy Villanueva is our new emergent disaster management area coordinator. She's worked for Beach City's Health District, the Glendale Fire Department, and the City of Hermosa Beach. She's coordinated volunteers for disaster response, including CERT teams, the Medical Reserve Corps. She's prepared and trained city staff to serve communities following disaster as disaster service workers and emergency operations center staff. She's prepared critical plans such as local hazard mitigation plans, emergency operations plan, and teaching the importance of building an emergency kit and developing an emergency evacuation plan and family communication plan for community members. So she's just starting off pretty much working with us, and we're delighted to have Brandy come and give us reports on what's going on in Area G. Brandy?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All righty. Well, thank you for having me this evening. Look forward to continuing the partnership between Area G Disaster Management and the COG. I know we have a lot of work that we could be doing together, so we have lots to explore. I just started in this role at the end of September. I did leave Hermosa Beach in September and moved over into this role. And as Jackie mentioned, the disaster management area there's actually 8 in LA County. We're broken up into various geographic regions. So there are 8 coordinators for each of the cities, or the DMACs as they call them. Our board here in Area G, we do serve 14 South-based cities: El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, Hermosa, Inglewood, Lawndale, Lomita. Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes, Rancho Palos Verdes, Redondo Beach, Rolling Hills Estates, and Torrance. So I work with all of those cities with both the board of directors, which are the city managers for each city, as well as the emergency managers, to ensure that at the local level, they have their plans in place, they have their recovery capabilities, their response capabilities in store. When you look at our geographical region, there are a variety of hazards that we actually have to plan for and be ready to prepare and respond to, from earthquakes to tsunamis to wildfires, civil unrest, hazardous releases. Because of our local refineries, we have the ability to have multi-car collisions because of our multiple freeways around, plane crash, train crash, utility disruption. So really, we have the full gamut here in the South Bay. Most people don't think we do because we don't have those large responses on a daily basis, but we have the full gamut of disasters that we could and will potentially need to respond to. So it's my role to work with our cities to make sure not only their local city is prepared, but also that they can help, and we build redundancy with our neighboring jurisdictions to help if one city is overwhelmed over another. I also work with the DMACs to work together so that when there is a disaster, we can actually cover for each other. So much like the incident we had this past weekend, I've been in communication with the Area C DMAC, trying to make sure that we're coordinating responses and sharing the same information. I also work and serve as the liaison for our local jurisdictions to the County Office of Emergency Management, so that we can really help coordinate all of our programming, our coordination, our communications with both OEM, but also with the jurisdictions, making sure information is coming down from the operational area, then also going up so that they can support us as needed. My role also is to make sure our staff are trained, make sure the ESCs have the training capability to train their staff, but also act as a trainer. So over the next year, you'll see a lot more training coming through. Hopefully here in the next couple of months, we'll start kicking off some of our required training, because all disaster service workers are required to do various trainings. And it's my job to make sure our local cities are working through that process. Something new in our area that I am responsible for is the Alert South Bay, which is our alert and warning tool that we have as a regional basis that will actually encompass our partners in the city of Carson as well. But those contracts have now moved into Area G. So I'm working through that with our legal teams and making sure that all of our areas are supported in the alert and warning capabilities that we need. As part of my day-to-day role, I'm also responsible for the variety of grants that not only Area G has to support the area, but also trying to facilitate and assist our local communities in getting grants to prepare themselves as well. My job as well will to help regionalize some of our response capabilities. So the county has launched, for instance, a new evacuation system called Zone Haven. So our 4 cities on the Hill are working with the county to actually launch that so that they could do an effective evacuation regarding wildfire. So that's the first start of this rollout. I also am working with our area as we move forward on implementing a new software system for EOC management. So over the next year, there's going to be a lot of movement with our cities and their planning and preparedness. And I really look forward to working with all of your cities, as well as you guys, because all of our city council members are also required to have various disaster trainings. So if you haven't had them, I'm sure you'll be getting them over the next year, hopefully. And that's just my update at this point. I really have just started to hit the ground running. So I look forward to any questions you may have for me.
Well, Brandy, for someone that just started, you're doing quite a bit. Thank you. Are there any questions for Brandy? All right.
I have a question.
Please.
Brandy, this came up yesterday when I was meeting with Councilman McCosker's staff. What is your relationship with LA City, and how do we work with them in the San Pedro area and Wilmington?
So LA City is actually their own disaster management area. So they have their own coordinator for the entire LA City. I meet with them on a weekly basis. They're part of our disaster management team that we meet with. In terms of in San Pedro and how that works together, we can talk how to try and integrate yourself and your staff into that area as well.
Assam?
Thank you, Brandy, for detailed information. I just have a couple questions. You talked about the supplies that you make sure that cities have all the supplies for disaster recovery. Do you also have any plan for designated shelter areas that people know in advance, just in case that happens, or where to go? Because most of the time that is a confusion. People don't know where to go to get shelter. And the second part of the question is the communication infrastructure that gets disrupted in most of the areas. So how do we address those two things? Thank you.
You're welcome. So in terms of sheltering capabilities, each jurisdiction works with designating their own shelter locations, right? So each city works with the Red Cross to create an MOU so that the Red Cross can come in and help facilitate sheltering. That doesn't absolve the actual cities to have to create and build their own supply cache for sheltering, because the Red Cross could take, depending on the size of the incident and their impacts at the time, they could take in their MOUs up to 72 hours to get to us. So each city does need to build their supply cache and what they would do within that immediate 3 days following a large scale disaster. When you designate a shelter, the idea is that you're going to assess those shelters and try and find out what resources or capabilities do we need to bring in to make those shelters, one, access and function needs capable, because we have a lot of buildings that are older and some of them don't have those capabilities. What do we have to bring in? Do we need showers, portable toilets, those types of things? Some communities don't have large facilities, so it's a partnership capability. In terms of then promoting them to the community, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So we identify ahead of time what those shelter facilities are, what we need to bring, what staffing, who needs to be trained to manage those resources in those facilities. But not every shelter will be opened following a disaster, right? So we don't automatically open every shelter because we don't have the capacity immediately following an earthquake. One, to know if it's even safe, it needs to be inspected before we can bring people in. So internally, that city will have the list of where the shelters need to be. And then based on capability, based on need, your EOC team and your leadership team will determine which shelters need to be activated, and then in turn, share that with the community. I know we want to be able to say, these are our shelters and this is where you need to go, but unfortunately, each disaster is going to present something different. And what we don't want to happen is that our residents go to a location and it hasn't been inspected and we end up putting them in more harm, or it's not a location that we have staff going to set up at that particular time. So we really need to make sure that our staff internally are ready and prepared to be able to activate every shelter that we can. So it's gonna be based on the disaster, but having the list is important. In terms of communication, can you explain to me or clarify exactly what you're looking for? Are you looking for how we notify residents, or internal communications, or all of it in the same?
That was a big question. Yes, so just to narrow down, just in case of, the communication is with each other, or who to contact to get the information about some of the, loved ones and so forth, basically.
Okay, so initially following an incident, depending on the type of incident, each city has an internal communication process where they're going to immediately notify, whether it's city leadership, from fire, police, depending on how the notification structure is set up. So each city sets it up based on what their capabilities are. Each city, the EOC or the ESC, which is the Emergency Services Coordinator, will then notify me, as well as the duty officer for the Office of Emergency Management with the county, just to put the county on notice that there is something going on in their community, as well as the potential of needing resources from them. They notify me, so in the event that they need my services, they need me to come help at the scene or in the EOC, I'm available to do that, unless it's a large scale disaster in which I then have to report to the County Office of Emergency Management, where I help serve as that advocate for our local jurisdictions to get the resources they need. This happens all the time now. I've been working really closely. We've had the PV landslide recently. We've had the winter storm. So our ESCs and I talk a lot and communicate and brief each other a lot. In terms of how that then translates into those community engagement efforts, your internal communication team will determine what information needs to be released, and they have tools in place that they can do that. So we have the Alert South Bay platforms where they can send out text messages, emails, phone calls, depending on the severity of the incident. The system we have also has iPause capability where we can send regional notifications. We have redundancy built into that system as well, that if a jurisdiction, for instance, as an example, something's going on in El Segundo and they're not able to send it, one of the other jurisdictions, if they need to, can send it, or myself can send it as well. So there's a variety of communication components. You know, we rely on our cell phones, but we also have radio communications with the county as well, because the County Office of Emergency Management is our local jurisdiction's operational area. So in the event that we can't get the resources we need, or don't have them in our city, or can't get them through our vendor agreements or our mutual aid with our neighboring cities, we ask the county for those resources, and then the county can move it up if we need to for us. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Debbie, one more question. Go ahead, Debbie.
All right, I'll try to be brief. Thank you for the presentation. Does your office do any pre-disaster work, or are you only engaged in the event of an emergency or disaster? For example, assessing egress routes from a high fire risk area before a high risk fire happens.
So your community is actually engaged in the Zone Haven system that is currently being worked on through County Fire or County Office of Emergency Management, where they are looking through the various city maps. They're zoning out what that evacuation looks like and what those notifications will be to actually help with the evacuation. I'm helping in with that type of program development, but in terms of actually writing the plan of how that looks, that will be your emergency manager. I will help that, and we can also work with consultants to help. I know for most of you, as your cities are going through their local hazard mitigation plan updates, it triggers your safety element update, which also requires an evacuation plan development. So it's definitely part of the process. So I can help to not actually physically write the plan for them, but help kind of identify what that route looks like. And for your community, you have 4 cities that are all using the same route. So it's definitely a 4 city-wide approach that has to happen.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Brandy, for that great report.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
You too. Next item.
Next item is, we're now going to go into the COG reports, and I'm excited to say that the General Assembly is coming together. It's March 23rd, and it's the South Bay leading the way to resilience and sustainability, I think.
I think that's it. I don't have it in front of me.
David, I don't know if you want to talk or if you're busy with whatever behind that logo.
Yeah, I can talk.
Okay.
So far, we've lined up a couple speakers. We'll have Alta C presenting on some of their sustainability programs, particularly a new one that is just starting to get underway that looks to harness wave power. We will also have an expert in distributed energy resources, who was previously with the California grid operator. Our keynote speaker will be Gene Rodriguez, who was previously with Southern California Edison and was just recently appointed to be the Secretary for the Office of Electricity at the U.S. Department of Energy.
He's an assistant secretary.
Yeah. And then we're still looking for some other speakers, but we're invites are out. Hopefully they'll get lined up in the next week or so. Generally speaking, the idea of the event, of the theme this year, is to look at some of the state goals and priorities, continued growth, conversion to 100% electricity for travel in your homes, for heating and appliances, all that kind of stuff, juxtaposed against the impacts of climate change and unreliable water resources, a grid that appears to be just able to handle barely what we put on it today. And then what some of our cities are doing locally to prepare for that future. There's a lot of stuff going on in the South Bay that's looking to address that, and we want to highlight some of the success that we've been experiencing down here, preparing for that future. And then we'll conclude the event with a youth panel that will reflect upon what they heard through the day and provide comments and some recommendations or thoughts about where they'd like to see the cities go as they prepare for their future. Since these young folks will be, it is their future that we're trying to prepare for. We thought hearing from them would be an interesting exercise this year.
Thank you. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to start in the regular time, exhibits, acknowledging our sponsors and all of that. Then we're going to have a panel that is heavily water related. And the idea is to get us one speaker who will speak on the general situation. And we have invitations out for that. And then have our local agencies respond to what's going on here. West Basin will definitely be participating, and they've already confirmed their participation. We've put an invitation out to Torrance Water to talk about what they're doing. We're looking at MWD, WRD, some different speakers to respond to what they've heard from the main speaker. Then we'll have the keynote, which is Gene Rodriguez, who's this newly appointed assistant secretary. And his portfolio is in charge of the grid. He's supposed to be looking at the grid on the national scale. And then we'll have a panel, as David said, of somebody who's worked in energy before, but it's really, we've had a good conversation with him. He's very ground up, bottoms up kind of planning, very interested in cities' local control and how we can get more involved in things like solar. We've put out an invitation to some other local agencies, such as Altasea, who is confirmed. So, and then we will have our lunch and our youth panel. So it should be a different kind of General Assembly, but I think it'll be really interesting. We're looking for help from you for sponsorships. And if you bumped into a speaker that follows that portfolio that you think would be good for everybody, please let us know. And it's not too early to RSVP.
Can you provide the board members some type of template for that sponsorship request so they can send it out to their contacts?
Okay, can you ask what, yeah, we will send it out.
Okay, thank you.
So the next item is the local travel network. And the local travel network is right now we have city applications for Measure M funds, which we're going through right now. We want to work very diligently with the city of El Segundo and see what we can do in a sort of a fast track way. And I have an appointment, I think in February something, with the Strategic Growth Council that's been actually arranged for me by the California Transportation Commission staff to talk about how some of the density discussion that they're having, how it should also link to a micromobility network, and they should promote it. It's very clear that micromobility is not part of the state discussion right now, and I think the California Transportation Commission agrees with us that it should be there. So and we also going to work with the other beach cities. I'm going to be meeting with Councilman Lesser and working in Hermosa Beach and going into Gardena, Hawthorne, and Lawndale. So we're very excited about it, and everywhere we have gone, people are enthusiastic about it. I think unless there's any questions on the local travel network, then we'll go to Jonathan Pacheco Bell is going to talk to us about REAP and the housing programs that SCAG is funding.
Yes, good evening, everybody. So REAP stands for Regional Early Action Planning Grants. And we have one that is active and one that is hopefully in the works. So I'm going to start talking about REAP 1. This one has a focus on planning activities. So ADU Acceleration is the first project. And that is a multifaceted study of accessory dwelling units in the South Bay. The participating cities for that project are El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, Hermosa, Manhattan, and Redondo beaches, Rolling Hills, and Rancho Palos Verdes. So in terms of this, the major report that we have to give tonight is that the ADU survey is just about done. This was a survey sent out to locations that have ADUs built or permitted or have a certificate of occupancy in those 8 cities. We had 3 rounds of postcards go out to all those locations over several months. Additionally, I did targeted door-to-door outreach at several of those locations in November with one of our most passionate volunteers. From that survey, we had a total of 817 recipients and an overall response rate of 11.4%. Could always be better, but I do want to highlight that that response rate for us was more than double the statewide ADU survey that was conducted by UC Berkeley. So we're doing something right. 93 responses, and that was 71 owners and 22 tenants. So what I can share with you today is that we have some preliminary findings. First, lots of family members or friends are tenants of ADUs. Lots of residents from the South Bay or nearby. So in other words, people aren't seemingly coming from long distances. There was a large percentage of market rate ADUs found in the survey. There's certainly a desire for more streamlined permitting processes and like how-to guides, how to make ADU processing easier for residents. And there's an interest in the ADU occupants of learning about things like our local travel network and micromobility and electric vehicles. The second item to report on the ADU acceleration study is our housing policies comparison deliverable. That compares ADU policies across those 8 cities. And that report is something that summarizes several interviews that were done with the participating cities' planning staff, and it provides recommendations. Now, Jackie, Wally, and I, Wally is from the COG, we've reviewed that first draft and gave substantive comments. The consultant was very responsive, got us back a second draft, basically updating and reflecting all of our comments yesterday. So we have comments that will be going back to the consultant, and we believe that we'll get that deliverable finalized in early February. And in terms of this project, we're looking at the next task being the comparison and forecasting of ADUs, and then the final one, which is the summary report and recommendations. So ADU acceleration is definitely on track to finish in June. The second item under REAP 1 is commercial redevelopment into housing. This is a project that looks at what would it take to convert underperforming commercial to affordable housing, sustainable housing in the South Bay. The participating cities are Carson, El Segundo, Hawthorne, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, and Redondo Beach. Now, in this one, the cities are at the point of having identified redevelopment areas within their jurisdiction. And now the consultant is doing a more targeted focus on 2 parcels within each of those redevelopment areas in each city. And the parcels reflect a variety of sizes and configurations so that these findings can be potentially applicable across the South Bay, not just in these 6 cities, but with the variety of parcels, you have applicability across our different cities and unincorporated areas. The draft final report design template as well is under our review, and we're working on getting that template done next month. So that deliverable is going to look great. And then finally for REAP 1, the Housing Education Forum. This is a series of online educational sessions that are basically all things housing from multiple perspectives to educate South Bay civic leaders. We had our first session on the topic of housing markets a couple of weeks ago, and it was a success. 30 attendees, overall very positive comments on the post-event survey. It was a very plain language kind of introduction to the complex topic of housing markets. From the survey, we had a lot of constructive comments and ideas for future sessions. And in terms of support, I just want to give you an idea. So the overall event rating was 4.11 out of 5, 5 being excellent. And then the question about whether folks wanted to return to the next session, 4.67 out of 5, 5 being very likely. So it's going in the right direction. The next session, everybody is invited, February 2nd, 12 p.m. on Zoom. A flyer is in the board packet. The topic is the framework of state housing policies. Very important for us to be aware of. The speaker is Ms. Dori Ganetsos, Senior Specialist from California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. We have 40 RSVPs as of right now. I say we double that by the end of the board meeting. Let's get everybody there. We're encouraging our board members to attend, to ask your planning directors to attend, your fellow city council members, planning staff, commissioners. We really want to get this on the radar of all leaders in the South Bay. That's REAP 1, and I'm going to transition out to REAP 2. So this is coming down the pipeline. REAP 2 is a focus on implementation, so actually bringing things into the world. We have 2 avenues for potential funding here, and I'll address both. The first is the County Transportation Commission, aka Metro Partnership. So for that, this is the competitive avenue. We propose 3 collaborative projects with Metro. Number 1, educational support for micromobility and our local travel network. Number 2, a feasibility study for neighborhood mobility hubs within our disadvantaged communities, Hawthorne, Gardena, Carson, and West Athens, Westmont in 2nd District. And then the third is this, basically the state of micromobility and housing in the South Bay. We met with Metro on January 11th. Not only did they have no comments or questions, but they expressed a high level of interest in our proposals. They provided us a draft application to basically start working on it. And right before the board meeting, Jackie and I received a letter from Metro basically sharing the implementation process, like what to expect next, and another version of the draft application. So nothing to report, and we haven't received any funding yet, but by all indications, looks pretty good. And then in terms of REAP 2's second avenue, this is the sub-regional partnership. So this is actually an earmark. The money is there for us, $585,000 and some change for 2 projects that we're going to propose. Number 1, the South Bay Regional Housing Trust, which was created under SB 1444, but it had no funding. So this would be a way to start it off by creating, the mechanism to study what it would take to get this housing trust created and funded. And then the second project is essentially a continuation of what we're doing with commercial redevelopment. We're kind of calling it commercial redevelopment 2.0, implementing the work that we're doing now. So from what we've heard from SCAG is that the deadlines have now been pushed for these applications to probably March. The regional council still needs to approve the applications, and actually HCD still needs to approve the overall program. And then finally, we anticipate the dispersal of funds around June 2023, according to our colleagues at SCAG. That is it for me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Jonathan? Yes, Drew.
Not a question, but a comment. It's great to have you on the staff of COG. I remember before we had a resource on housing and transportation. Well, we had transportation, but housing in particular. It's great. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, sir. You were in my job interview for the COG, so I appreciate that.
He's doing a great job.
Thank you.
Good selection.
Great, Jonathan. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, next is legislative issues. And we are talking about making a budget request. The budget request that we would make, and we have a meeting on Tuesday, I think, with Senator Allen, just to sort of vet what we're talking about. It turns out, for all of you that have been around for a while or not, this is the 20th anniversary of the South Bay Environmental Services Center. And the South Bay Environmental Services Center has been nothing but successful in delivering the message of energy conservation and water conservation, energy efficiency, water conservation. But we want to take it up a notch and really bring it into the 21st century. We want to get funding to help our cities with microgrids, with energy walls, with renewables. And we believe that it's very difficult to figure out how to piece together all of the siloed grants and to do a comprehensive regional kind of project where we can bring the cities online. So what we're doing is we're asking for a $2 million budget request. I'd say, how could you do that when there's a budget deficit? But the governor has just reduced the funding for climate change. And the pitch that we're going to make is that you've reduced the money for climate change, but $2 million, which is literally pocket change, spent locally working on specific projects to carry out state goals is a good buy. And so we're going to see, we figured Senator Allen is an environmentalist, and we're going to see what he says. We're going to ask him if it should be legislation or just a straight out budget request, which are different timelines and all kinds of stuff. So we'll know more later, but we're hoping that we think that we can deliver because we've shown we can. And there are things that we just don't have funding to do that really would help cities today with state carrying out state goals in environmental areas. So that's the state budget request. And we are going to meet with other legislators as well, but that's the one definite appointment we have. The second thing, every time I say something, the person walks away. The second thing is, as you know, every year we have I guess it's every year really, except for last year. Yes, we have a legislative meet and greet with Cal Cities and the South Bay Association of Chambers of Commerce. And I don't know if do you have something?
I do not.
Okay.
Not for that.
Okay, so we have tentatively have a date, which is March 10th, and it would be like 9 to 11:30 or something. I don't know. Depends on how many legislators we get, first of all. And it would be at
8 o'clock to 10 o'clock.
8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Okay, I can only hope it's high. Anyway, it's going to be at Cal State Dominguez Hills. And the date was just settled on, which means we haven't asked the legislators. So this is somewhat tentative because obviously if no legislators come, probably won't happen. But please write it down and look for an invitation. And Jeff is, going to get up early tomorrow morning and start calling legislators. So
David's going to help.
And David's going to help. So we do have a date for that. So that is, and I don't know if you want to do legislative issues now, Jeff. Do you look like you have something you want to say?
That's the one we used to have at the Nakano Center here in
Yes.
Florence.
It'll be at CSU Dominguez Hills this year.
They've been asking for years
They have.
for us to do it there. So we'll try it.
As far as other legislative issues, I actually did bring, as part of my report, there is some information on the budget in your packet. But I do have a handout. Which, you're asking for $2 million. We're asking for $4 billion. So, yours is a pocket change, but ours is sort of leftover from last year. So on the front page of that sheet that I'm handing out is a copy of our budget asks. $3 billion for homelessness and housing, $1 billion in unfunded mandate reimbursements that the state didn't get to last year, even though they had a large surplus. And actually on the back of the sheet is what your cities are owed in back funds as far as they've updated as far as last year, 2021, actually, I think. And then lastly, we have to, every time there's a budget deficit, remind them, please don't rate our our city and local funds. Those taxes help pay for our essential services. So we are going to be careful to make sure that they are not going to steal any of our funding.
You have this electronically?
I will have to send, I thought to bring copies here, but I forgot about the folks. So I will send it tomorrow morning.
You can get up, whatever.
Yeah.
I have a question, Jeff. So can you give us an example or me an example of these unfunded mandated programs and how what's a practical example of that?
I knew I was going to get that question. So I printed, there's a long list of things that can be reimbursed. A lot of them have to do with public safety. The Rape Victims Counseling Center notifications, for example, threats against police officers, tuberculosis control, countywide tax rates. So basically there is a huge list available on the state controller's website. When you get it electronically down sort of at the footnote there are links to what can be reimbursed. It's available on the state controller's website. The challenge is, and I think that's probably why 3 cities are missing from my 25 city region. They don't have enough figures available from the controller's office because it's pretty time intensive to request this money, just based on what I tried to glean from how this all works on the state controller's website. So I would presume that that's why those 3 cities are lacking any information from the state controller's office. They just didn't apply for it.
What's the likelihood that?
Not very high, but we asked last year. We're going to continue asking until they pay their money.
Oh, it's broken down.
You asked about other legislative, planning on this toward the end, but other legislative things we're going to work on. We did just decide that we are planning to sponsor a Brown Act, another piece of legislation to try to modernize the Brown Act a little bit. I had a call with the city of LA last week. I saw that CalCog is also sort of on board with this idea that we need to modernize. It's going to be very incremental. I'll warn you now. If you think we're going to get back to fully being able to be virtual, if need be, that's probably not really going to happen anytime soon. The author of AB 1944 from last year that did get us a little bit more flexibility. He's not willing to run another piece of legislation this year. He was our big champion. So we're having a hard time finding an author. So that's what we've got language into the Legislative Council's office. So we'll have a bill. We're just now seeking an author. And that's what we're doing before the February 17th deadline for legislation to be introduced. Just sort of surrounding that legislative deadline, expect about 4 weeks. There's a 30-day delay between the legislative deadline to get things in to the hopper, as they call it, before the policy committees and the legislature will begin to meet. And as is always the case, a lot of these bills will be just 2 sentences long talking about what they want to do. They won't have any real language, so it'll be probably months, unless they're really big pieces of legislation or really high priority for the legislature, before we really know what a lot of these bills will do. So I know I'm certainly excited to get into the meat of a lot of this legislation, and our lobbyists are pouring through it. It'll take a while, but we'll have some sort of information rolling out here in the next month and a half or so.
On the meeting protocol then, what's the likely, you said you had language for a bill, you're looking for an author. What's that likely to look like? Is that continuing what we have, or it's some modification, or?
It will actually probably help the COG more than most city councils, but especially for those cities that have a lot of commissions or committees. What we're trying to do is at least allow those bodies that aren't making the final decision in a legislative matter to be able to meet virtually.
Like transportation committee at SCAG or something.
Planning, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't even know all the details yet. And I think once we get the language back from Ledge Council, we'll have a lot more to go on. But I just wanted to let everyone know, because I know I've been working with the COGs, my 3 COGs on it. And hopefully that's something we can all kind of work together with the city of Los Angeles kind of coming on board and saying that they want to also be engaged. That's certainly helpful. They bring along a lot of legislators if they really put their weight into it.
That's great.
Funny, the VMT reduction, it's a state goal, and they won't let you go virtually to some of these committees.
Yeah.
Jeff, I had a quick question about the $3 billion request for an investment in helping cities increase housing supply and prevent and reduce homelessness. I was curious, building housing as part of the effort to reduce homelessness. Community acceptance of housing has been one of the impediments to that, probably the primary impediment, if I understand it correctly. Is there any discussion in the legislature or in making this request of providing incentives for communities to do that? And I'm not sure what those incentives would look like, but perhaps additional dedicated funding for public safety, whatever the case may be, to try to overcome the community acceptance challenge to building housing.
There really isn't. You do get the opportunity as a city council and planning commissioners to ask for mitigation purposes from those developers. Hopefully you can get some of that out of them. It's interesting. I was just speaking with Culver City, who the member who's on our division board yesterday. And he was talking about they have 2 Project Home Key motel renovations that they're going through the process of doing right now. And actually there's one at the end of my block where I live in West Hollywood. And what I didn't realize, because I have been following the one at the end of my block very closely, is that a lot of the ongoing servicing of the people at that Project Home Key site will actually fall upon the city to pay for. That's not something I was aware of because within the home key grants, there are capital and improvement grants. And then there's also some servicing, some services grants that come along with it. I didn't realize that that's basically just enough to get the thing up and running. And it's almost a little bit more usually than the basically a one-to-one match in order to run these things for 15 years or so. That is usually the Project Home Key. So there's a lot of things that I'm still learning about where the holes are. So it's something that we're going to continue to work on. But
that really quickly, that's not normal. Like, so like the Redondo Beach home side,
correct.
The city is not putting in a funding for it. The county is. And so,
right.
So the city signed on to it, but it's not contributing any of its own funds.
But it's not necessarily coming from the state is what I was, the county can also do their Measure H funds.
In fact, there's Home Key Round 3 right now that cities can sign on to with the county, and the county does have funding to support operations at these sites.
Yeah, Culver City is seeking county funding for it, but they're not sure they're going to get it. City of West Hollywood self-funding it. So it's something that we're going to keep asking for.
Is that, Jeff, is that because the city, surely the city of West Hollywood didn't say, we'd like to just fund this ourselves. They sought the funds and get them, or what was the?
They have a dedicated funding bank from their Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Oh, so they have the means to do it themselves. Interesting.
And I don't know if there's other grants that have been dumped into this other fund. I was just, I'm just looking at the staff reports and things and learning where the bulk of it is coming from.
Should we go on?
Okay.
And I guess I'll hand this one out too, but I'll save the rest of my comments for the end. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, next item is the Finance Committee. And I just want to make an announcement. There's several designated members there on the Finance Committee, but there's not that many. And we would like to, if anybody's interested in serving on the Finance Committee, this is our second meeting. We're planning to have only 3. It's February 1st, which is next Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. And it is a Zoom meeting. And the agenda went out today. We're going to talk about policies, use the employer contractor status, what projects could be funded with more resources, and recommendations in board. So if you're interested, I did not send the agenda to everybody, but if you're interested, please let me know. We'd love to have more members on the Finance Committee. So I shouldn't turn my back to the people there too. Okay, so that's the Finance Committee. Then we only have a few more reports to go, but they're big ones. So Ronson, you're next with Homeless Services.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen really quick. So Laura and I, we did the homeless count last night. Laura did San Pedro, I did Redondo Beach, and we're frankly a little beat up from it. We had some technical glitches. It was the first time we used this new app, and I don't think they load balanced the app. So it was failing at the worst possible time. But that aside, we wanted to just provide some quick updates and make them happy because we're still tired. And so one of the first things we want to say was that we had this bomb cyclone that happened about a month ago. We didn't know what to expect, but we wanted to plan for the worst and hope for the best. One of the things we knew was going to happen, and sure enough it happened, was that there wasn't going to be enough emergency winter shelters for our people experiencing homelessness. And sure enough, even before the bomb cyclone hit, they ran out of room. And so we treated it as an emergency situation. And so I quickly called up Jackie and said, hey, we got to do something because people can perish on our streets if we didn't do something. And so Jackie, thanks to her, quickly approved to use our client funds to open up some hotel rooms. And so we targeted frail and elderly handicapped folks that could perish on the streets to be put up in these rooms. So the picture here is Carrie with his outreach worker. And he's been handicapped since birth. He's partially deaf. And so we were able to get him in a dry. We helped 2 other people on handicap in wheelchairs and a couple of people that just came out of hospitals treating physical conditions. And so it was great. I think we did help people, make it through the really bad storms that we had recently. Carrie in this picture actually accepted a shelter spot in Redondo Beach. So that was another positive outcome of all this. So I just want to update you on that. So that was great. Another amazing thing that happened just this week, right before the homeless count actually, is we put 37 people in our region into shelters just this past week from a lot of our different cities. The gentleman here in this picture, the person on the right, is from Inglewood. This shelter is in West Athens, just right next to Southwest College. It was 176 beds. And believe me, we put out the bat signal, and I think most of the beds are now occupied by South Bay residents. We were always mindful on the equity side of things. So put us some stats on the diverse demographic of folks that we put in there. So really kudos to our outreach teams. They did a very heavy lift. We were like blessing people into that shelter last week. It was great. So that's that update. And then lastly, this is the last slide. We have a SPA 8 health working group. This health working group was born out of the pandemic, where we convened. The Beach Cities Health District convenes this meeting. It's not just for the Beach Cities, it's for everyone in South Bay. But we want to talk about various health issues that affect our cities. What we talked about on this meeting is in our next regional convening, which will be sometime in February, and you all will be invited. One of our big focus is mental health. And we hear this a lot from you all, that we don't know what's going on with mental health services in our state. The county's been tasked to provide the service to us, but there's no feedback. And so we're constantly wondering what's going on with mental health on our streets. And so one of our focuses this year is to bring DMH to the table. So much like how Lindsay's also part of this SPA 8 health working group, Lindsay Lastra, she does a great job of updating us on COVID. We need that type of feedback loop for mental health because we need to treat mental health on our streets like an emergency, like COVID. And so what we want to do is bring DMH to the table more. And this regional convening that we're going to have in February is going to be the first attempt to do that. So look for an invite in your inbox soon. Another thing we talked about is the mobile mental health pilot program that we want to do with the beach cities. This came out of the last innovation round of innovation funding. We were working with the beach cities to develop a mobile mental health response pilot. Subsequently, the city of Hermosa Beach submitted an earmark request to Senator Ted Lieu's office, or Representative Ted Lieu's office, and we won $1 million to put on a mobile mental health response pilot. So we're going to work with beach cities to come up with a plan to implement this. We have some ideas, and so be on the lookout for that as well. Another update that we talked about is the care ports. The care ports are going to possibly coming sooner than expected. The LA County is saying that they can launch with the first cohort. So if you don't know what this is, it's the attempt by the state to provide more conservatorships for those who are experiencing mental illness on the streets. And the care port is supposed to provide this kind of new paradigm where we can provide more court-ordered solutions for folks. The LA County was supposed to be in the second cohort, which would not start until 2024, but now they pushed that up. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to achieve this. I believe there's only one court that can really handle this, and that's the mental health court in Hollywood. So I'm not sure how feasible that is for people of our cities to go to Hollywood to go to this court. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to implement this, and we're just following that. We also talked about possibly doing PACE programs for seniors. PACE is this program that's part of Medi-Cal, which offers seniors like free healthcare services, including dental. Dental is not covered by Medicare, so PACE offers the ability for seniors to get free dental services. And Lindsay talked about AIM, a program for Black mothers, expecting mothers. Unfortunately, their outcomes are suboptimal compared to other demographic groups. So LA County is really trying to focus on bettering these outcomes. And she talked about the AIM program to help with this. I don't know, Lindsay, if you're still on, if you wanted to mention anything about this. Otherwise, we can have more of an update on the next meeting about the program.
I can definitely share. I'll share resources. I was telling the group, I'll definitely start becoming more of a liaison just to share resources that we have on that. I was expressing to the group that in the early part of January, we had a death of a young Black mother in delivery. She was trying to deliver a perfectly healthy pregnancy. Everything was fine. But unfortunately we lost her during delivery. She had some complications. And so that is something, it's an issue that we continue to see, unfortunately for our Black mothers. And so we really want to see how do we make changes, policy, making sure that we have services available. The doula program is now Medi-Cal. It's being covered by Medi-Cal. So we are trying to really enhance that as a support factor for mothers who are pregnant and whatnot. So I'll definitely share updates on this. It's a big push for our department, especially in our Spot 8 area. And so I'll be sharing that as much as I can, especially with our health work group, and we'll make sure to get the word over to you all. So thank you. Thanks for that, Ronson.
Yeah, great. And then lastly, on senior services side, I guess maybe we should just do the senior services update since I put this up here. Senior services, we meet with some of our federal legislators and we talk about things to improve our social safety nets for seniors. One of the things we talked about was like there's no dental benefits, and that's become a huge part of the pocketbook kind of expense of seniors on fixed income. And we're seeing that in homeless services, like people are devoting a lot of their expenses on dental services. That's causing them to become housing insecure. So pushing for legislation to see if we can cover dental expenses in Medicare. There's other issues that are kind of in the minutia, like for example, if you're getting Social Security and you work, that your Social Security income is now taxed a little differently. Up to 85% of your Social Security income can be taxed if you decide you want to work while you're retired. And so there's things like that that we want to kind of like change so that people want to supplement their income by working, they're not penalized for it. So we talked about that as senior services. And I don't know, Britt, if you wanted to add anything else, but
I thought the presentation on PACE, which is Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, was very helpful in terms of the hands-on kinds of support that they provide for the elderly. And then also we had a report on the MAPS charities and some of the short-term visions they have for seniors. So, and then our next meeting will be, it's every other month. So it's March 28th, Tuesday.
25% of Californians are 60 or over. It's growing, and seniors are the fastest growing demographic of people experiencing homelessness. And that came out from, there was a report from the Department of Aging last week. It's really frightening. So we need to look at this. And what Ronson shared about the safe landing, housing 37 people off the streets in 2 days was an absolute amazing feat. We need more facilities like this safe landing of 176 beds. We need the city to come up with interim housing and new construction, affordable and low income housing. We need a higher percentage of new construction.
yeah. Oh, and thank you, Supervisor Mitchell Alfonso. I saw her on Saturday. I thanked her personally. But I'll send you some of the comments our outreach workers said. I mean, they were just loving it. Like it was the first no wrong door approach where we were literally just dropping people off and they were being taken care of at the site. So thank you to your team for opening that site up. And we definitely need more of these.
Whenever it's a question, I got two. Okay. I don't want to assume I know what the mobile health, whatever. What would be to be doing? I just want to make sure. I don't want to guess.
Yeah, so it's actually to supplement the 988 response. So LA County launched 988 last year. It's supposed to be alternative price. So let's say a person inebriated, maybe is experiencing homelessness, stumbles into business. Now the business calls 911, but that's taking a lot of resources, right? Fire, police, away from more serious means. So the idea is to have people call 988 instead. The county still has not fully rolled out the 988 program. And so and part of the reason is, they're having a hard time contracting providers for it. And so the idea was that could we, at the same time, work on our own pilot to supplement the 988 response? Because we want a true 24/7 response. And that business calls, we don't want the business to wait 8 hours before someone, because by that time that person who's inebriated is gone. The event's no longer an issue.
But it's 988, like I need help, looks like a homeless person is causing some problem here. But the thing is, but you're saying it's mental, so at that moment, does the business owner need to determine, is this a mental issue? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
How? They know.
How would they know?
That's a very good question. And I think some of that is the training, like, so I'm not an expert on this, obviously, but yeah, so at some point, police, fire, and the providers need to sit down, and also dispatch, you sit down and determine what types of calls are appropriate for these, and what types of calls need to really go to 911. And so I think some of that stuff has not been ironed out yet.
That's a really good question. I was at a quality of life Chamber of Commerce meeting in San Pedro this morning, and they discussed that at length. And there is no real good answer right now, but what they're working towards is getting information to local businesses with a list of, if this happens, call this number, and if that doesn't work, call this number. But there's a lot of disconnect between fire department, police department, understanding what alternative crisis response is. It's a little, honestly, it's very muddy right now. And it needs to be addressed. And then Ronson talked about care court, at what point mentally health for a person having a psychotic break or having a mental health issue. Do you go to conservatorship? Are you violating civil rights? Are they a threat to our society? These are questions we have to look at.
Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, because we're gonna, these are amazing discussions, but unfortunately, we're gonna run into
I was just trying to-
the next day if we don't get through the next report.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
thank you, Ron and Lori, for
I'm
that.
gonna pass these out. Lori prepared these tonight on eviction notice. You can take and give to people about their rights with evictions. And it's on the website as
And if
well.
everyone could be somewhat efficient with their reports, for
Yeah.
the rest of the reports.
We've got about 4 reports left.
We-
One is transportation is next. And Steve, I don't think you have a lot, but if you.
Let me just go through it quickly. At Metro today, the Metro board meeting met. They had a 5-hour meeting and 4 of the hours were on 2 different topics. Most importantly to us, they approved our Measure R Metro budget requests. So your cities that applied for additional funding on your current projects through the Measure R program can now talk to your contact at Metro and start the funding agreement amendment. So you can go forward with those. The rest of the day was spent on 2 items. One is Metro is grappling with what they do with homelessness at the end of the line and at their stations. I won't go into a long discussion of it, but they seem to have 2 approaches. One approach would be to have Metro just be the transit provider and refer to the cities and the county, those folks who need assistance. The other would have Metro take a more encompassing role. So this discussion is going to go on for the next 2 or 3 meetings at least, because the board is not aligned on this issue as to how aggressive Metro should be on dealing with the homeless on its vehicles, bus and rail, and on its station properties. The other issue was equally divisive. There was an amendment to the current customer code of conduct. In Metro, there are 2 things that get done. The law enforcement sworn officers enforce penal code violations, and the Metro security staff is supposed to enforce code of conduct, non-penal or civil kind of program violations. There's been a lot of confusion over the last few months as to who does what, when, and how does it get coordinated. So again, there was a long discussion. There was a motion that was set aside, and they basically asked staff to return in March on how you coordinate the civil and criminal enforcement of the people experiencing homelessness. And so the item was received and filed without any action. So those are the 3 things that happened at the Metro board today. Question?
I don't remember anything from the transportation committee.
I have it here.
Okay, go ahead.
Hang on, let me click out of this one and click into that one. The Transportation Committee was pretty standard with updates from the committees and the working groups, Service Council, District 7 updating its programs. I updated the deadlines for the Measure R and Measure M. David put in some details on what was needed by when, so that's been covered. The big presentation was by Metro on rail lines and the state of good repair issue. Over time, lines like the Green Line as it goes down the Century Freeway, 105 Freeway, get old. And at about 25 years old, there are major retrofits that have to occur on these lines. And so Metro explained its approach to basically renewing the traction power and the signal and communication systems, the track work, so that the lines can live their useful life of 40, 50, 100 years. So they described that process to us so we would be aware of what would be needed by when, and the fact that the Green Line is coming up in the next year as the next major project to have that renewal process undertaken. Was that about it, Mark? Did that cover it? I'm asking Mark Dierking, who's on the phone.
No, I think that's it. You're gonna talk about what came out today, right?
Well, yes, I'm going to mention that, that you're talking about the EIR, draft EIR.
Yes.
Okay, yes, we have the draft EIR out for the extension of the Green Line. And so we're going to be discussing it not, I guess, at the next board meeting, as well as at the April board meeting. It's going to have, it has 3 alignments and a no build, as I understand it. But, and I should let Mark do this, but I'm trying to save time.
Fine.
It includes other studies such as traffic and some things that are, Mark, do you want to just say that?
And funding.
Right, so there are some things that we're coming out with. We've been, meeting with the community now on this project for over 10 years. So the environmental document is out. There's a main environmental document. We're using CEQA analysis for this, and because we're only using local money. And there's a whole separate set of documents that we're doing also so that we cover issues that people are familiar with, like traffic studies, other items that are not covered under CEQA per se. We're also including cost analysis and also construction schedule. So we're just sort of laying it all out, and we'll see where we are in a few months after it's all over.
Yeah, after the public comment period on the draft EIR closes, they'll come back with a locally preferred alternative and a final EIR certification. At that time, they'll also be able to tell us more definitively what it's going to cost and how they're going to fund it, because the costs have gone from 890 million to 1.2 to 1.5 billion at this point.
Well, so we'll have a lot more discussion on this topic. But I did want to say that in preparation for our discussion on this topic, we're having a bus tour. And the bus tour is sponsored by, it's not sponsored, the bus is being provided by Senator Mitchell's office to take us all to parts of the Expo and Green Line, and Gold Line, which would be analogous to how it's going to come through Lawndale and Redondo Beach area. And so it turns out, just a heads up to all of you, that I have RSVPs only from the city of Redondo Beach. So if anybody is interested in the Green Line and you want to go to this, I would, it is space limited because it's a bus. And we're taking elected officials first, although you can't have a quorum because it's a, private problem. So elected officials first. We have a couple of commissioners from Redondo Beach as well. So that's clearly publicized it, but and then we have staff. So it's going to be in that order: elected officials, commissioners and staff, and then public. And I think I have a couple of public people. So contact me if you want to be on the tour. We'll send more information as we get closer. The tour will meet from here. It'll be March 1st from 1 to 5.
And we have 5 public meetings coming up in February, public hearings.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you for that. Yes.
Thanks, Mark. Zane?
Sure. Just curious, what kind of, I guess, are we going to do any heavy lifting in the COG as far as going through the EIR? Or is there any resources the COG can lend to the South Bay region as far as analyzing the EIR, posing questions to Metro regarding the different draft environmental reports that it's come out with?
I think Steve, David, and I will definitely be looking at the EIR and bring comments to the Transportation Committee, as well as hopefully your city staff, and bringing it to us so that we can do that.
In particular, the city staffs that are along the alignments that are being proposed.
Well,
They're responsible agencies, but the rest of the sub-region is welcome to comment as well.
yeah, and we can synthesize those comments.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, then next is Kim. Sure. It's the major program and we.
And I had some slides, but we're not going to share them because we don't have a lot of time, but they will be available for you to reference them. So just a couple of updates that are in addition to what's on actually in the agenda packet. One is our outreach team, Martha Segovia, has certified 55 businesses this year, specifically in the cities of El Segundo, Hawthorne, and Torrance. She did a fantastic job, and that was even in less than 12 months. So that's really exciting. And she's getting ready to go on for a next round. And that'll happen. Actually, she's going to probably start next month. Also to let you know that the Edison Charge Ready program, this is the electric vehicle charging that infrastructure that Edison was paying for cities. And we had 3 cities that were participating. That's Carson, Gardena, and Hawthorne. But what's interesting in the update is that those chargers are not going to be installed until 2025. And the problem is that Edison says that there's very large expense at upgrading the panels at an average of $15,000 per panel. So even though these are the cities that are participating in that program, there's going to be issues, right? So if your city is going outside of the Charge Ready program and trying to get Edison to make upgrades so that you can get chargers in, you're going to be delayed. So just something to think about.
By the way, the COG did a report on this years ago to say that
It was a problem, yeah. Also, the CPUC has required the utilities to implement to allow third-party providers to go out and do energy efficiency. And there's been a lot of controversy about this, but recently a company called Clear Resolve is out in the communities reaching out to cities. They do municipal projects. And what I want just to let all the cities know is if you are contacted or you've been contacted by a third party, if you could please contact me directly. And we want to make sure that those services are not something that's a duplicate of the SoCal REN program, which is I think almost all my cities belong to. The second thing is that you're not paying for something that you get for free somewhere else, and that there's coordination between those programs. And so if you could please let me know, that's Clear Resolve. They've been out reaching out to cities. Also to let you know that the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant Program is open. And I thought it was going to be a lot of money. It's not a lot of money, but it is being done by formula and has to do with population. There's some tier levels. It's a little bit complicated, but I have a list of the cities that are receiving funding. For example, I think of all of our cities, Torrance is getting the largest amount at 194,000. I don't know how much you're going to do with 194,000 for energy efficiency programs, but just so you know, it's not a ton of money.
I reached out to the city managers that were qualified to receive funding.
Oh,
yesterday,
wonderful.
So they should also be aware.
Okay, wonderful.
I think there was a webinar this morning.
Yes, there was. And our team did go to that webinar. For cities that are not getting the funding by this formula, so like El Segundo, for example, Rolling Hills Estates, Lawndale, Lomita, you're not getting them by formula. There is funding that you can apply for. And this again is an opportunity for you to work with the SoCal REN and the COG, and we're trying to figure out what that might look like. So even though it's not a lot of money, maybe there's some kind of a joint purchase that we could do. Maybe we could hire a consultant or hire like an engineer to install things, some coordination. This goes right into our energy equipment inventory work that we're doing. We're going out to every single city and we're inventorying the energy using equipment. And so as we build that list, this would be a great thing that we can package and say, hey, we've got all of these HVAC units that we need to have replaced because they're all getting ready, they're at their end of their life. And so then this would help us do that. And so we are reaching out to your city staff to do that. And if we have any problems getting in there, I'll be reaching out to you and asking you for some help. And then let's see. I think that's it. Just one other announcement. West Basin has a new board president, which is Scott Houston. And I think that's all I have. Is there any questions? Oh, I know. Sorry. One more thing. We did bring on a new Civic Spark fellow to do the greenhouse gas inventory updates. If you remember, we had Anne from Civic Spark finish up her work, but she wasn't able to get all the inventories done. And so now we have the new person coming on. She's going to be with us just until September, but she's going to verify the data that we've already got for energy. And then she's going to be looking specifically at transportation so that we can get those transportation that data in and then get that out to all of your cities, because you all have approved climate action plans by your own city councils. And so this is going to help you figure out, are you doing a good job? Do you need to do anything different? Okay, that's really it.
Okay. Two pretty fast announcements on the South Bay Fiber Network. We just yesterday distributed the request for proposal to get started on our $500,000 local assistance grant, which is going to look at a marketing assessment and needs assessment of the South Bay, and also areas of expanding the network in disadvantaged communities. What's happening is that we're very concerned that the federal government is going to issue something to allow construction, grants for construction. And so California was supposed to get us our grant like months ago and didn't. So we want to really go as fast as we possibly can. And this is a heads up I'm giving you. What we'd like to do, we can get the proposal circulated a month. We can do all the interviews and we can make the March steering committee. But as you know, there's no meeting until April. So we are going to be asking the March steering committee for approval. And that is okay by our bylaws, but I wanted to let you know that that's what we're going to have to do. We'll notify the board. We can also notify you next month as to how many proposals we got and how it looks. But we're going to be making that approval at the steering committee. So that's all I wanted to say on that. And then under other, we woke up one morning and got an email from somebody who said that state legislation passed by Sidney Kamlager, which made the COG a member of something called the Baldwin Hills and Urban Watersheds Conservancy. And I didn't know that. And so we have a seat on that board. And so I talked to the staff person, and it seemed to me that it would be very helpful if we got a public works director to do this, because it's going to be a lot of public works issues. And there's only 4 cities besides the county that are involved in this in our jurisdiction. Those cities are Manhattan Beach, El Segundo, Inglewood, and Hawthorne. I asked all 4 public works directors, and they've all declined because they don't have any time. So where we are right now is I've said to them, could somebody, and I'm hoping that maybe El Segundo will do this, could somebody go to the first meeting and just let me know? I can't even go.
What is it?
I've talked to Elias.
Okay.
I'm talking.
Okay.
So I just go to the first meeting and let me know if an elected official, with the help of a public works director, because we're having trouble filling this position, and yet we're legislatively supposed to sit on this board. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. Congratulations, you're now members of the Baldwin Hills and Urban Shed Conservancy. And that completes my reports. And I think Jeff said he had one more thing to say.
I was going to be very brief. The CAL FIRE and the state fire marshal are updating their fire hazard severity zone maps for the first time in 12 years. Right now, the maps that are out and available are just for the state responsibility area. That's essentially unincorporated areas. None of the cities here are involved in that. But last week at the city managers meeting in the South Bay, the Peninsula cities all asked me if we could get them involved in this process. I've been communicating with them, but long story short, the local responsibility area maps will come out in the spring. And you'll be hearing more about that, and will be a public comment period. That may be the only thing we can do, but we're trying to sort of work through Ben Allen's office and others to see if there's any other ways that the cities who are going to be very affected by this can make comments sort of in advance of the public maps. But I'm not sure that will happen, but we'll at least be able to do the public comment, and I'll make sure to that everyone knows when that happens.
Do you think the process that's going on with these state maps of the unincorporated areas will be similar to what happens to the individual city maps?
Very, yes.
And because on the peninsula, I think someone last time just took a big red pen and circled the peninsula and said that's all high fire zone, which is not really fair to people that live on Western Avenue and other places where there's not a lot of trees. So it'd be nice to know if they look at every property individually, because it does affect people's fire insurance greatly.
I very much so. And a lot of those fire insurance companies, the private ones, are no longer able to even give policies in many of these zones that are covered by these maps. So you're ending up with the state as the insurer of last resort. So I did see a big swaths of change in the Malibu area around the Woolsey fire from these the state responsibility area. So I imagine, although thankfully the Palos Verdes Peninsula hasn't burned in a number of years, that they're looking at a lot of the past fire data. So that's where they get this information. They're not looking at individual parcels necessarily. They're looking at where the fires have burned.
Wow.
Updates and announcements.
Or no more agency reports?
No more agencies.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any upcoming events or announcements in your city or county? Looks like we've worn everyone out.
I know. We talked about the end though.
All right, with that, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Wait.
In memory of actually a very good friend of my family, and also the city of Segundo. Unfortunately, we lost Sandy Jacobs, who was mayor and actually a very active and amazing member of the city of El Segundo. Drew, do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, Sandy was a mentor to me. She was a dear friend. I just had coffee and homemade desserts she made 3 weeks before she passed in her home, her and Charles, her husband. First female mayor in Segundo. She worked closely with Jackie.
Former chair of the COG, an excellent chair.
Incredible friend, and she was completely vivacious and with it when I saw her. She was suffering from Parkinson's, thank you, the last few years, but mentally completely with it. And so feel surprised to see that happen. And we also just don't want to diminish certainly Sandy's memory. We also lost another mayor last week, Bill View, who I don't think was ever a member of COG, but
No, but I knew him.
for a while in El Segundo. So it's been a rough run.
I should also mention, I don't have the name, but we lost a volunteer this month also. She was 38 years old and I don't have her name. Martha's getting more information. But yeah, but
Okay,
want to give that to Drew?
we're adjourning in Sandy Jacobs' memory, and I'll go ahead and give this to Mayor Boyle so he can bring it to Carl. Or you could bring it to your council.
There's a letter there for the family and their certificate, so do with it what you want.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, John.
Okay, bye.
Get up, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
Good night.
Good night.
When you were talking was funny, kind of